that we didn't know that it was going to be successful or just a massive flop and failure. So I think the space that the trip allowed gave us time to consider and develop an idea that we really weren't sure of at the outset.
It's funny because about the time you guys were developing this idea, I'm on Amazon searching for ankle weights, and they're so ugly. You're right. They're like these like sandbags, and they only come in bright orange. And I remember like trying to take a walk with ankle weights, and it's like nothing cute. So that makes sense. Anyone who's out there and has a simple idea like you guys had, how did you bring it to fruition? First of all, did you raise money? Did you start with one product, which I think you guys did? Like, walk us through, like, you have the idea and then what?
Yeah. So, there's this really interesting phenomenon, and I'm sure those of us in this room have experienced it before, but when you have a business idea, even a bad business idea, and you start to talk about it, people are going to turn to you and say, that's the best idea I've ever heard. Doesn't that exist already? You should absolutely do that. And it's something that Nat and I were really like kind of overtly aware of in the early thought for Bala, that, this idea is interesting enough to take steps sort of toward developing. Let's just make sure that we keep taking those steps, that we don't get too satisfied by that kind of like social validation of somebody else saying, yeah, great idea, go ahead and do it. And so, the early sketch of Bangles actually look a hell of a lot like what the Bangles ultimately became. We thought, let's do these silicone overmolded bars on this athletic elastic band. And so we didn't come from a background of product design. What we did instead was just iterate on that sketch. So we sketched it 10 more times. We went on a site called Upwork.com and found a render artist that could render it in 3D so it would be more representative. And really, even though the early idea was on this trip in Asia, we spent the next year prototyping it. And we would literally like cut up water bottles with materials that we liked and kind of just like, MacGyvered together these like absurd prototypes that, felt like meaningful steps forward. We didn't raise money at the outset, but we ultimately were quoted $40,000 for the first production run. And having just gone on this trip, we probably had $500 between us. So we launched a Kickstarter campaign that was ultimately successful. And that funded the first production run. It wasn't terribly long after that we had 6,000 pounds of Bala Bangles delivered to our second story walk-up.
I love stories like this because, I think what happens sometimes is people get so overwhelmed because they have the grand ideas and they're like, okay, the idea almost overwhelms them, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
They don't think like, what's the first thing I can do? And then the second thing. And then the other thing they say, well, I don't have any money or I don't have the resources. Just even those little things like Kickstarter or Upworks, like those are two gems right there. Like you don't have to go through traditional funding. And if you don't know how to do something, there's probably somebody online that can do it for, a relatively cheap fee.
So take us back to your Kickstarter. What does that look like? I don't even know how I would launch that. Like, explain to the audience what you guys did.
So, because we were in advertising, we knew how to market a product and we knew like how to, get a video made. Like we knew the production side of things. So we really like did research on Kickstarters and we saw what was out there. It's like, okay, you need all the information like in like a brand friendly way. And then you need a video that tells the product, because the product didn't even really exist at that point. I think we had like one non-weighted prototype. So we needed like a video of somebody doing yoga with the product, for example. So we really just like got the video produced. We wordsmithed the Kickstarter campaign, and then we had to market the Kickstarter, that was really hard because it's basically marketing it to your friends and family. I think we did like a few Facebook ads, and that was a weird flop. But
and the momentum in the beginning is important, right?
Yes, exactly. And so I think like the shorter timeline is better. I think there's like 30 and 60 days, but you want people to feel like it's going to sell out. And you want like a lower goal, because our another mistake we had is the money. You can't get the money unless you reach your full goal. So we were like stressing when we weren't anywhere near like $40,000 midway through the campaign.
So if somebody comes in and they say, I need $200,000 and they get 180, it doesn't matter.
They don't get it. So I would almost just like go lower on your goal. So you at least
subscribe.
Yeah, you at least get the goal and then you can unlock the money. So that's just one tip, but essentially like shamelessly marketing to your friends and family.
Yeah, I will add though that we were sort of naive to Kickstarter when we launched it at the time. When Kickstarter started, it really was in support of these back of the napkin ideas, right? That you could just sort of take a picture of it and folks would see the viability of that idea and then invest in it. What Kickstarter has become is sort of like a launch platform for small design studios that are incredibly well resourced and are putting together a really professional campaign and then running ads really methodically
Like
against
email
it.
campaigns.
Email campaigns, they're running paid ads. And we didn't do that. We just sort of exhausted every person in our contact list, and then hopefully relied on, just some of the visibility from Kickstarter itself.
It's
to-
you
to
goddamn
raise.
marketers. You figured out how to crack these things, and now the normal people can't get in there. you know?
yeah,
That's what
exactly,
happens, right? That's
Seriously,
what happens.
yeah.
Is the marketers come in. They're like, oh wait, this works. Like let me.
100%.
So what do you guys do when you raise the money? What are the steps that you were taking and how did you know how to allocate the funds? Because you guys, I mean, a lot of people come on here and they don't go to business school. They just figure it out. Is that what you guys did?
Yeah, absolutely. So we, like I said, we didn't know, we would have been crippled by thinking 10 steps ahead because we didn't fundamentally know what those 10 steps would be. So we'd only ever thought a step or two ahead. And there was actually strength in that kind of iterative process. Like nothing ever needed to be perfect. It just needed to be better than it was 5 minutes ago. So it didn't really matter how small the step was. And often, like, those steps weren't necessarily forward. They'd be to the side, they'd be back.
Like what's a step? Give us an example.
Well, we basically like the Kickstarter money was all for the first production run. So we had no money to actually like market our product. So it was a word of mouth strategy. So like one example there is since we had no money, we weren't going to do paid advertising. We said, okay, let's try to get into some like cool retail stores so that they advertise for us. And if we can nail like getting into like Goop or Bandier, then all of a sudden we have credibility. They'll be marketing the product for us and we don't have to put money into, that we don't have into ad dollars. So that was like a step for us is like making a list of retailers that we wanted to approach and then just like stalking them on LinkedIn.
I know this is super granular and but I think it's relevant because again, there's a lot of young people that are listening to this or just entrepreneurs in general, aspiring entrepreneurs. When you start thinking, I want to get into a Bandier or you want to get into a Goop, what does that tactical step entail?
I mean, I think that it's like, don't have all your hopes on the one, like have a list of 100 and just be okay if you get into 5 of those. Because if Goop is like one of the 5 you get into, all of a sudden you have credibility. You can get into a lot more. Yeah. So I think trade shows, like we went to 4 total, I think early on, and that really helps get exposure. So trade shows, but then also just like stalking them, like tagging them in products. We got into Free People movement by tagging them in like we had a Bala image. I think we had like 1,000 followers, but she was wearing a Free People movement top, a picture of my sister, and we just tagged Free People movement, and they liked it.
And they were an early adopter.
Yeah,
for
and
us.
he reached out to like the Bandier person on LinkedIn. So just like stalking the buyers, if you know.
And is the product the pink weight that you launched with, the pink ankle weight?
Yeah, so we actually launched that same SKU in charcoal, blush, and deep blue, which has since been discontinued. So that was the initial production run. We had 1,000 of each.
But we've evolved it like since then.
Well, I have to tell you, the way I heard about your product was through word of mouth. Like, my trainer, Kim Kelly in San Diego, is like, she's a big trainer there. She loves your products. And she was using it and was like, you have to get these weights. And then my Pilates teacher, Betsy Parker, was using, I think, the white one. So maybe that was a little farther down the line.
Yeah.
And same thing. So I heard about your products word of mouth. So you guys were totally right on that.
We had this idea really early that if, we sort of live in this world where people are dressing up to go to the gym and they're kind of documenting that experience. And
True.
so we thought 2 things would happen. That if you were in a yoga class with 20 people and one person was wearing a set, that 19 other people would take note. And that same thing would happen in social where people are taking selfies at the gym. And if they're happening to take a selfie whilst wearing bangles, all of their followers see it. And that happened 1,000 times what we ever expected it would. So there was this really like sort of, maybe because it was a wearable, maybe because it was a well-designed fitness accessory, which have only ever been sort of, functional in nature and really utilitarian. But we just had influencer trainers, celebrities, people documenting them, and there was just this kind of like, it's the world's worst word, but this sort of inherent virality in the product itself.
I posted it all the time because it's so pretty. It looks, you're so right. I mean, I use them, but I also want to post them because they're gorgeous. So that was very smart.
You know what's so funny is like, I think, and if like any aspiring or even existing brands are listening, like, and I think you guys nailed it, like aesthetics in terms of product presentation do matter in this day and age, because we all use this thing and it's a representation of how we want to present ourselves. So it's like, it's not just about an outfit anymore, right? Like, it's the accessories, it's the stuff you put in your home, it's the products. Even like building these studios, Lauren and I's experience podcasting was you went into these like dark and dreary studios, no light, you couldn't see anyone, everyone's sitting in the corner in these weird laptops, and you're like, who the fuck is that in the corner? And so I like, even looking at this, I'm like, to reiterate it and make it light and bright in a place where people wanted to spend time, like, it matters.
Yeah.
And I think people that are thinking about a new brand, they put so much thought into marketing, into wholesale accounts, into retail. They don't put enough thought into like, how is my product actually presenting and looking on these platforms that we all use now.
Yeah. I think what we found, especially in the sort of journey of product diversification beyond the bangles, is that in fitness, there's this sort of phenomenon where when people come over and you have your fitness gear out in your living room or wherever you're getting a workout in, you throw it away. Like, it's sort of this embarrassing eyesore. But when fitness products are designed well enough that you're comfortable leaving them out, you're actually more inclined to use them as a result. It's sort of like if you want to learn the guitar, you're not practicing if it's, under your bed in its case. But with fitness products that are out and about and part of the decor that you've sort of curated in your home, you're going to use them more often. So, we talk about that a lot. It's like, a beautiful designed razor, might make you fall in love with the razor, but it doesn't make you want to shave more.
Thank you for that segue. I have a Skinny Confidential razor for women to shave their face, and it's silicone and matches with your. It matches with your. I'm going to give you one. It matches with your freaking ball weights. It's super, so lay your razor out next to your ball weight.
There you go.
Cute.
Yeah.
It's super smart though, and it's such a subtle thing, but it's so important. And that was my point. It's like people, they just don't. I mean, in your case, you're going to be in the gym, all these people are going to see just one person. Like, that's your marketing there. Instead of having to go and hack and figure out, like, how does Facebook work? How does Kickstarter? Like, that is your marketing.
I also think there's something to be said too about just making a damn good product that you would use. I think there's so many influencers out there that just want to slap a label on something and white label it to make money. The ice roller took 4 years to do a prototype. It sounds like you guys were in it for like a year and a half.
Yeah.
It's, if you really want to create something that I think does go viral and people do love, you have to take your time, and it has to be something that you as the creator actually want to use and have out.
Yeah, good products, like, they truly speak for themselves. And good products, you want to tell people about that. Like, I would use the razor, and then I'm going to tell 10 friends, and word of mouth marketing is the most powerful kind of marketing, like way better than Facebook ads and anything like that. So I think if you can nail the product, like, you're good, I
also think what you said about telling 10 friends, instead of when I was launching my brand, and it sounds like you guys did the same thing, it's like I looked at my consumer as an influencer. So even if the consumer has 100 followers, you're so right. She's going to go to brunch with 10 of her friends, and she's influencing 10 of those friends to buy Bala weights if she likes them. And I think where brands go wrong is they're only looking at these girls with millions of followers, but actually it's the people that are using your product that are going and being influential by word of mouth.
Yeah.
Okay. You guys got to tell me the whole experience of Shark Tank. Like, I want to know how you applied, which ones you met, like the whole process.
Okay, so how we applied, it was kind of random because when you have a good idea, everybody's like, you should go on Shark Tank. So Max's aunt said that, and we were in Connecticut at his parents' house one day, working in Bala, trying to make it work. And I was like, I'll just apply. And so I emailed an application. I was like, I'll never hear back. We ended up hearing back. We were in the running for, long story, we were in the running for season 10. And then we were out all of a sudden. We were about to have flights booked to LA, and they were just like, we can't tell you why, but you're out. We'll call you next season. We were like, that will literally never happen. But they did. And they called us next season, and we were in the running. But it's a whole process. It's like you have to speak to the producers every week for a while, like several months. Yeah. And
what are they asking you?
I mean, it's honestly like mini tryouts. Like you have like a long list of homework. It's like, go film yourself pitching the video, like, do all this legal stuff. It's like homework and
do they want to see if you're like you're camera capable?
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
You do.
Camera ready,
You do.
whatever.
You do videos of your pitch, and you kind of develop the pitch over time. But you're also doing sort of due diligence on the business, so that what you're saying to them is actually like demonstrable in your financials and things like that.
Okay. Okay, makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a whole process essentially. And then the whole time they legally have to say, like, at any point you could be out. Even you could get there and film your episode and it either never airs or you're sent home. So it's like just this like stressful emotional thing, because it could be such a big break for your business, and it's not, you don't really have it until it airs. So anyway, that's like the whole process. And then we eventually got chosen. We went to film. It was like the most stressful day of our lives, and it was very anxiety inducing, but we did it, and we wanted Mark and Maria, and we got Mark and Maria.
It's worth mentioning that the show is depicted accurately in terms of our experience, right? There's no informal interaction with the sharks before you walk down the tank, the hallway, and then
There's no pre-pitch.
There's no pre-pitch.
Okay.
So there's no...
You get one chance.
You don't get comfortable. And, we kind of liken it to a blind date that's being filmed, where if the blind date goes badly,
worse than a blind date.
It's actually better. It's better TV, right? So they are creating this drama. They're creating a high stress situation that, if you're successful, amazing, hugs at the end. But if you're not, that's a win too, in terms of like the entertainment value for the show.
And marketing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like better if you cry and it's horrible,
Yeah, I only cried beforehand.
You basically did.
But it went really well for us. And I think that, that early insecurity around, are folks going to fundamentally get, this redesign of otherwise existing product? We had that in the context of Shark Tank. And so we didn't know if like Barbara and Kevin were going to love it and fundamentally get it, or it was just going to be, kind of over their heads from a design point of view. And everybody loved it. And we ultimately got a great deal with Mark Cuban.
But
and
we
Maria
definitely
Sharapova.
thought that they were going to pick us apart. We were like, they're going to call out counterfeits. They're going to say, so what? Nike can do this. And we thought we were like prepared to be picked apart. And it just like, it went well, I think, because we had like a nice valuation that wasn't too intimidating for them. And